Is your dog's food created to maximize your dog's quality of life or to extend the food's shelf life? It's time to make the switch to Sundays. Sundays was founded by a veterinarian and mom, Dr. Tori Waxman, who got tired of seeing so-called premium dog food full of fillers and synthetics. So she designed Sundays, air-dried real food made in a human-grade kitchen using the same ingredients and care you'd use to cook for yourself and your family. Every bite of Sundays is clean and made from real meat, fruits, and veggies, with no kibble. That means no weird ingredients you can't pronounce and no fillers. Because your dog deserves food made with care, not in the interest of cost-cutting. You just scoop and serve. No freezer, no thawing or prep, no mess. Just nutrient-rich, clean food that fuels their happiest, healthiest days. So you get more of them to share together. Go right now to sundaysfordogs.com/now30 and get 30% off your first 3 orders. Or you can use code NOW30 at checkout. That's 30% off your first order at sundaysfordogs.com/now30. Or use code NOW30 at checkout.
The life of a media mogul is analyzed in an attempt to learn the meaning of his last word, Rosebud. It's our 500th episode. Woo! And we're talking about the Streisand effect, a feature that's not in the Chase app, and a painful COVID flashback. Then we find out if Citizen Kane stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says Gladiator with the glut. Alan says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everyone, and welcome for the 500th time to the Test of Time podcast.
Woo!
I'm James Brief, and joining me, as always, is my buddy, podcast host, and the director of this podcast, Alan Noah.
Hi, that's me. It's 500 episodes, James! Yay!
500 episodes! Yay!
500 episodes. That's a lot of episodes.
And we've done everything from Independence Day to today's Citizen Kane. We've done Best Pictures that were amazing, Best Pictures that were terrible. Since 2016 to today, it's been 500 episodes.
Yeah. I pride myself on being consistent in certain things. I've been a Mets fan my whole life. I've been playing Nintendo since I was able to. My daughter and I still watch The Simpsons. I still don't miss an episode. There are a lot of things I've been doing for a long time. But to record a podcast episode every week for 500 weeks, almost a decade, we'll hit our official decade mark later in the year because we do 52 episodes a year. I'm willing to pat us on the back for that. That's really impressive, man. Good on us.
And, it's been 500 episodes of the two of us talking about movies. It's not just been us, though.
Sure.
We've had guests on the show that have not only been fun to have on the show, but have fundamentally changed how I look at movies. There are some people who are film experts, and there are people who are just amateurs like us, but just... It's our guests sometimes that can really bring a fresh perspective to things. And just a thank you to our guests and also even to our fans that have, not been on the show, but just thank you for listening. And we don't make money on this podcast. This is a labor of love.
Right. A lot of the people who have been on the show are friends of ours. Also, and this is gonna sound corny, we've made friends through the podcast. There are people who I wouldn't have ever met or talked to, and now I consider friends. And there are friends who we were friends with before, but it's a great way to stay in touch. I probably see guys like Eddie and Dom more regularly because of the podcast. And this is you and I. We hang out every single week to talk movies. How cool is that? This is just amazing. For the occasion of the 500th episode, I asked fans, listeners, former guests to send in messages about this milestone. We got a bunch. I'm just going to play them. We're going to start with a message from my sister, Samantha Noah.
9 times.
9 times.
9 times. That is how many times I have gotten to be on the Test of Time podcast. Let's see if I can do all 9 movies I've reviewed off the top of my head. Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, Little Monsters, Goodfellas and My Blue Heaven, Devil Wears Prada, Half Baked, American Psycho, Follow That Bird, and Requiem for a Dream. I am so excited to find out what your 500th episode is going to be because I have no idea. Keep doing great job that you're doing, Alan and James, and always invite me back.
Hey Al, hey James, Clinton Festa here. As you know, huge fan of the podcast and also a huge fan of my Test of Time hooded sweatshirt. And I also happen to be the guest of a few previous episodes, episode 359, 409, 429, 483, and more to come. I did a little research on some numbers and I found out, did you know, most podcasts only last about 6 months. 47% of podcasts don't go past episode 3. 75% don't go past episode 25. Can you imagine being in one of those 47% of podcasts that didn't go past episode 3? No, you can't, because you guys do a good podcast. Can you imagine being one of those 75% that don't go past episode 25? No, you can't. You guys aren't quitters. You got a good thing going. We love it. Keep it going. 500 more, then another 500. Just keep going. Thank you.
Hey, James and Alan. It's Matt from Good Movie, Bad Movie. Guys, congratulations on reaching 500 episodes. I've been listening since just before episode 100, and it's been fun and insightful listening to your discussions, as well as an honor to have been part of a few of them. Looking forward to many more. It really won't be too much longer before this podcast reaches 15 years, and I have no doubt it too will stand the test of time.
Hey guys! As a well-known, eloquent orator, I have spent many hours deliberating how to articulate my celebratory glee. So, to the fellows at Test of Time, I proclaim what Matt said. Congrats on 500 epic episodes, and thanks for having us on. I raise my glass of cold brew to you and to many more movies. Cheers.
This is Shahir, one half of the only podcast about movies, just chiming in to congratulate you on reaching 500 episodes. That's a huge milestone, and we're excited to hear 500 more episodes. I know one thing I love to do is come on the show and try and pitch movies that are not often talked about, and hopefully get them entered into the pantheon of movies that have stood the test of time, at least in my view. I know we've pitched Sorcerer and The Paper to you guys, but at any rate, I hope your podcast stands the test of time and is an incredible archive for future generations to come to look at what movies we were all watching and thinking about over the years. Thanks again, guys. Hope to be back on the show at some point soon or have you guys on our show. Congratulations again.
Hey, James and Al, this is Darren. You may remember me from such episodes as 8 Mile and all 47 Die Hard movies. Congratulations on 500 episodes. I am shocked you guys made it this far. I thought the FCC would shut you down after Al gave that horrific ruling on our beloved movie The Rock. But what I figure happened is they listened to some of those episodes, heard James' pronunciation of some of those words, and figured it wasn't English anyway. But regardless, congratulations on 500 episodes. That's an amazing accomplishment. I can't wait to listen to 500 more. That is until I get my rival podcast, Query of Longevity, up and running. Until then, you're the best show in town.
Hi, this is Sue from the Singles, Reality Bites, and Mean Girls episodes. Just want to tell you guys huge congratulations on reaching the 500th Timers Club. Producing a podcast every single week for almost 10 years is an astounding achievement. You should be super, super proud. Thank you for giving all of us a break from the real world by taking us to the movies with you every single week. Also, big thanks to you and all the listeners for enduring Cannonball Run at my request. You guys are the best. Congratulations.
Carlin here. Congratulations on your 500th episode of the Test of Time podcast. I really enjoyed the time when I was able to participate. I love listening every week and wish you another 500 episodes. Congratulations.
Hey guys, it's Mark from Release Date Rewind. I was on your show a long time ago, and I cannot believe you guys are hitting 500 episodes. Wow, the test of time is lasting the test of time. Wow. congratulations. I know from a fellow podcaster that is a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of time, and a lot of movies. So congratulations, guys. Really cool. Keep it up. You're an inspiration, and hooray for movies. Bye.
James and Alan, what's up? This is Jason Torres, giving you a big congratulations and happy 500th episode. That's actually a major milestone. Very impressive. You're now in the elite company of institutions like SNL and The Simpsons and 60 Minutes and most local news stations. I've been listening the whole time. I'm a day one lifer, and I genuinely cannot wait for the next 500 episodes when you're reviewing season 1 of the show to see if that in fact stands the test of time, which is actually not a bad idea. We can offline about that. But seriously though, congrats. I'm really proud of you guys. Really happy for you. You have literally stood the test of time, and that's a miracle in this day and age. Congrats.
Hi, Alan and James. This is Dominic Monfrey. I just wanted to congratulate you on your 500th episode and nearly 10 years, a whole decade of podcasts. I can't wait to see what words James will mispronounce next and which of my favorite movies that Alan will say that he just hates to his very core. I mean, Labyrinth? Come on, man. And I can't wait to join for my 10th episode, whenever that will be. 10 years, 10 episodes. Seems like it's a match. Love you guys. Keep up the great work.
James Brief, Alan Noah, 500 amazing episodes on one of the great pop culture podcasts, The Test of Time. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for consistently great conversations about movies and TV and all the things that are so much fun to talk about. And to 500 more.
Gentlemen, what can I say except Mazel Tov, congratulations, best wishes, all that. I'm so proud of you guys, and I'm especially proud of me because by my calculations, I am responsible for the content of 1.4% of the Test of Time's canon. So check it out. Billy Madison, UHF, Wet Hot American Summer, The Gods Must Be Crazy, forgot that one, Creepshow, Better Off Dead, being John Malkovich in no particular order. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you're welcome. And congrats, and here's for another 500. Hopefully there won't be a pandemic in this one, though. So, love you guys.
Congratulations, Dippy. Mazel tov on 500 episodes. He's gonna be a soccer player. Yes, he is.
Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to actually send that in. The last person you heard, that was my sister Amanda. And thank you for the Billy Madison impressions. That was one of my favorite podcasts to record with both of my sisters on there. Thanks again to everyone who sent something in.
Yeah, and we also got some messages from listeners who did not send audio, but things for us to read.
First, there's Jonathan Weissler. He's been on the podcast before. He's a film producer. He's our friend in London and cousin of the great Eddie Perez Cortez. And he says, keep up the amazing work, chaps. 500 episodes is a major milestone and a testament to the passion and commitment you have for movies. Thanks for letting me be a part of the Trainspotting and Empire of the Sun episodes. I really enjoy talking about movies and how they were made. I now listen to your channel regularly, and your choice of movies always celebrates what we love about films. Next stop is 1,000 episodes, and for that, we will need a crew to shoot it. Much love from London. Thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Next, we got a message from Carol Abramson, my mom, who wrote, congratulations on your 500th episode, Alan and James. I love coming on your show and can't wait to do it again. I also love listening to it. Congratulations again, and here's to another 500 episodes. Thanks, Mom.
And we just heard from Jonathan Weissler, but also his cousin, Eddie Perez Cortez. He's in the Five Timers Club. Eddie writes, congrats on 500. You guys are my favorite podcast, not just because you're my friends. It's a fantastic concept that truly stands the test of time. I love the fact that you've never truly defined what standing the test of time means, so it's totally subjective to each of you, your guests and the listeners. Keep it up, and here's to 500 more.
So this is a recurring theme. A lot of people have said, here's to the next 500. It kind of makes me think, Jesus, you people are insatiable. We've been doing this for 10 years. You need another 10? Oh my God. But I'll take it as a compliment that people want us to keep going for another 10 years. That's intimidating, man.
It feels like that line in Deadpool and Wolverine, you're going to be doing this till you're 90.
Right.
And it would be my pleasure to do that.
Sure.
But one thing I have to do first is, to quote Michelangelo, not the Ninja Turtle, but the artist, the sculptor, he always said of his sculptures, I didn't create David in this cube of marble. David already exists. I just have to knock away all of the dust and dirt. And, I want to thank you, Al. 500 episodes. You take what we've made, and sometimes there's going to be 2 minutes of a siren. Some podcasts, it's raw, and you just got to hear that. And I listen to other podcasts, and I'm like, I get you're a raw podcast, but Al would have made this a little bit better. And, the 41 minutes to 58 minutes that you chisel out of this marble, it's really because of Al here that we have 500 episodes. So thank you for your hard work and everything you do here.
I'm not crying. You're crying. Well, thank you, James. That was very sweet. I hear what you're saying with the unedited podcast, because sometimes it's like, oh, that's cool. That's just like a fun little unscripted moment. But sometimes it's like there's mistakes that can be removed. And maybe it's just because of my background in television, where that's what we did. We would take lots and lots of stuff and distill it down into a 44 minutes worth of content or whatever it was. And that's just kind of ingrained in me. Yeah, that's the way you get something that's better, I think.
Yeah, thanks again. And thanks again to everyone who submitted all those comments. But there's one more thing I have for you, Al, and it's a little surprise and a little thing I've been working on.
Oh.
And it's a gift to you, Al, and it's also a gift to you. You, our listener here. One of our buddies, a longtime old friend and friend of the podcast, has been on the podcast himself. Our friend Mailer. His only comment that he said in a perfect Mailer fashion, his only comment, not about our 500 episodes, about how much he loves it. He just asked, when are you releasing a full-length version of the theme song on iTunes?
Mm-hmm.
We had a different kind of a 8-bit version of our theme song for a while. And then I wrote the lyrics, but this musician, John Martinez, he wrote this fantastic theme song that we've had. I put online, I'm James Brief, I have this podcast, and I want to do something special. I was wondering what other people might be able to do with this podcast theme song.
Okay.
I had absolutely no direction here, but I did say to the person who makes the best either remake or reimagining of this, I'm going to give them a couple bucks. Okay. And people are so brilliant. I wound up basically saying I have to pay several people here.
Okay.
Because people submitted every genre you could imagine. And some people remixed our songs and some people completely redid them. And this first one is a 90s R&B by an artist, Renee.
It's the test of time. James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says gladiator with a glare, and Alan says as a father blah blah. It's the test of time. James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time. James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Wow.
You haven't heard anything yet, Al.
There's more?
Well, this version comes from a band called the Prairie Line Ramblers.
Okay.
It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says Gladiator with a fly, and Alan says as a father, blah, blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Oh my God, I love it.
All right, now this is not just a re-recording of this. This artist, who just went by KWA, I think he listened to a couple episodes and, of course, the theme song. This is what he gave us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's test time of time, so check it. It's test time.
What do Alan and James gotta say?
All these old movies, what do they think?
Do they still make it all the way?
All the way to the front page of your brain. Come on. What you grew up on when you swore was gold. VHS 9, all the nice stories getting told. Posters on the wall lines, you still gotta repeat. But nostalgia hits heavy and you buckle your feet. Everybody's got opinions, everybody's gotta take time. Pulls a mask off, see what's a real take, what's fake, what's real. Canon or trash, let the record rewind. James and Alan in the frame, yeah, press play. No mercy for the classics, past explain.
Come on, baby, don't be a traitor. Do the movie still hold up today?
Everyone know James can't say Gladiator. It's the test of time. James and Alan gonna tell you what they say. Come on, baby, do the James that you love. Do the movies that you hold up today. Do they hold up today? Do they hold up today? Do they hold up today?
Damn.
I really wanted for you an 80s rock band.
Like a hair metal band?
Basically, I wanted something that like a Bon Jovi kind of hair metal Poison would have done.
Okay.
Wow.
James says Gladiator with a glare, and Alan says as a father, blah, blah. It's the test of time.
Oh my God, I love that.
The name of this band, and it's appropriate, this one just makes me crack up every time. It's called Death to Podcasts. Death, DETH 2 is the number 2. And here is the speed metal version.
Oh my God. I have never really wanted to be a video podcast, but I kind of wish we were video right now so that everyone could see. I am crying. I am legitimately, actually crying. Oh my God. This is amazing.
All right, we got 2 left. They're both upbeat songs. First, we got this dance number. It's a kind of a house EDM remix by Domingo.
From Saturday Night Live?
Possibly, but
Okay.
but unclear.
Okay.
But here we go.
Test of time. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Hold up today.
It's gonna drop. Gonna drop.
James says gladiator with a gla. Ellen says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time. James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Wow.
I got one more.
Okay.
This last one, this is not a remix. This is just a complete redoing of this song. They call themselves Pop Sensation. This is one of my favorites. Here you go.
Yeah. What do Alan and James have to say? All these old movies, do they still make it all the way? All the way to the front page of your brain. I mean, come on. Where do you think those things live? Ha, ha, ha.
Don't you think that everybody has their own opinion? It's the test of time. James and Alan are gonna tell you what they say.
Come on, baby.
Do the movies you love still hold up today?
I said, do the movies you love still hold up today? Yes, so.
You wanna watch something new, but all you think about is James can't say gladiator.
Hey, baby. Ellen says I'm a dad.
Hey, baby.
You wanna watch something new, but all you can think about is Gladiator.
Hey, baby.
And Alan says,
All right. Wow. Pop Sensation. There's so many more. Thank you to everyone that put these in. I had so much fun working with everyone here, and there you go.
I love that. James, thank you so much for doing that. That was the best gift ever since the first gift of the most recent theme song. Thank you. I really appreciate that you did that. That is so amazing. It's so wonderful. My feeling is what we should do is we should rotate the theme songs. We should have the one we've been using and all of these new ones in the rotation, and we'll just pick one randomly for each episode. The Lonely Island and Seth Meyers podcast, that's one that I listen to all the time. They've had people just record different versions of the theme song. You don't know which one you're going to get when you press play on any given episode, and it's fun. These theme songs are so fun. I love them. I love all of them. Thank you to everyone who made them. Thank you, James, for doing this. This is so, so cool. You said all those nice things about me, that I'm the director. You do your part, man. That is exceptional. Thank you. I really, really love that. And I really want to listen to all of them again. I guess we should talk about Citizen Kane, though, because that is the movie we're talking about. So I was racking my brain trying to think of what movie we should do for 500, and Citizen Kane seemed like a good choice because it is considered to be the greatest movie of all time. And I thought, why not? Let's dive in and see what all the fuss is about. I'd seen this movie before. Had you ever seen it before, James?
Never seen this movie. Of course, I've heard of the film. The only thing I knew about it was Orson Welles. As I was watching this film, I realized, oh, that's where that reference comes from. Oh, that's where that meme comes from. And I'd never seen the film in its entirety, or actually, I'd never seen any clip of it.
Wow. Okay. I was on a kick probably about 20 years ago when Courtney and I were living in Queens. I had a long commute and a portable DVD player. This was before smartphones and streaming. And I was watching a lot of my old Simpsons DVDs with the commentaries on. And they would talk about certain movies that were an influence for the writers, producers, and certain movies that they pay homage to, that they rip off. And Citizen Kane came up multiple times. So I was like, I'm just going to watch Citizen Kane. I'm pretty sure I got it from Netflix as in a DVD in the mail, because that's what Netflix was back then. And so I'd only seen it that one time. But for anyone who hasn't seen the movie or needs a little refresher on it, the movie is about Charles Foster Kane, a rich and powerful man who says Rosebud before he dies. A reporter decides to interview the people who knew him best to discover the meaning of that last word. As a young boy, Kane's parents gave him to a banker named Thatcher, who raised him and grew his fortune. After college, Kane takes over the New York Inquirer and brings yellow journalism to the newspaper. He hires journalists from a rival paper, helps incite the Spanish-American War, and marries Emily Norton, the niece of the American president. Kane runs for governor of New York, but his campaign implodes when it's discovered that he's been having an affair with an aspiring opera singer, Susan Alexander. Kane divorces Emily and marries Susan, then does all he can to make Susan's singing career successful. Kane's former best friend, Jed Leland, begins writing a negative review of Susan, and Kane fires him. The pressure that Kane puts on Susan is too much, and she leaves him. At the end of his life, Kane lives alone in Xanadu, a palace he built and filled with artifacts from around the world. The movie ends with many of Kane's belongings being burned, including his childhood sled, which is emblazoned with the word Rosebud. So I know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it anyway, because, tradition and it's 500 episodes and all that. James, how did this movie do at the box office when it came out?
The budget was under $1 million or so, which was like $10 million today, and it was kind of a flop. It made back around that much money. It was released in a couple places, but released in the USA on September 5th, 1941. It had a lot of mixed reviews from critics. It apparently did well in the cities and did poorly in the small towns, well in Seattle and not other cities. There was a lot of hype for it, and it was one of these films from Orson Welles, and people cited him in a lot of the reviews, but a lot of people were just not impressed when it first came out, and box office as well was not very impressive.
There's a story to why it flopped. So Orson Welles was an anomaly with this movie because before this movie, Orson Welles was a radio guy and a theater guy. Probably his most famous thing was War of the Worlds, which I don't know what the term for it back then was, but it kind of went viral because people thought it was real. And then Hollywood kind of came calling to Orson Welles, and he was hesitant. He just wasn't sure about making movies. But he was given an unprecedented deal to write, produce, direct, and star in 2 movies, and he was going to have total creative control, final cut over the finished product. That was unheard of then. It's kind of unheard of now. It happens, but it's a rare thing. Back then, no one could believe that RKO was giving this kind of deal to a guy who'd never made a movie, ever. Yeah, theater and radio, sure, but this is a very different thing. So there was a mystique about the movie, and that's probably what you were seeing in some of those reviews. It's all about Orson Welles because he was the center of it. The reason that it flopped, in part, was because of the person that Citizen Kane was taking reference from, William Randolph Hearst. He was the inspiration for a lot of things in Citizen Kane. There are elements that come from Orson Welles' background. Herman Mankiewicz was the co-writer. He took a lot from other rich, powerful, successful men, their own life experiences, but a lot of it was about Hearst. There's a line in the movie about how Kane is trying to incite the Spanish-American War, and that was kind of a thing that was attributed to Hearst that he was doing. He was really pushing the war. The line about, you give me the poetry and the prose and I'll make the war, that's something that Hearst said. There's Xanadu, which is Kane's castle, which is just filled with art and statues from around the world. Hearst had Hearst Castle in San Simeon, California, that apparently was that exact thing. He was just collecting stuff from around the world, and there's no style or tonal consistency. Here's a floor from Italy and the ceiling from France and a wall from Spain, and it's all just in this room together. And Hearst had a longtime mistress, Marion Davies, and she was an actress, and Hearst used his influence to really boost Marion Davies' career. And, in his newspapers, they would write glowing reviews about her movies, and he would use his connections in Hollywood to get her in movies. And so Susan Alexander, as Kane's second wife, who is this aspiring opera singer, but really wasn't that talented, that was seen as a dig at Marion Davies. So word got back to Hearst, and he was pissed mainly about the Marion Davies thing, about how she was being attacked in Citizen Kane. And Wells and Mankiewicz, I'm just going to call him Mank, that's what everyone called him, the other screenwriter, they said they took more inspiration for that storyline from Harold McCormick's wife. I don't really know who that is, but the difference was that Marion Davies, Hearst's mistress, she was an actress long before Hearst ever met her. She was well regarded. She was well respected. People liked her as an actress. So it is different from Susan in the movie. But because of all of the other parallels, people felt like Citizen Kane was making a dig at Marion Davies. And that is what really pissed Hearst off. And that was why he tried to bury this movie. He almost succeeded in convincing RKO to burn it, to literally destroy every print that existed. He was going to pay off the cost of the budget. And Orson Welles apparently gave this really impassioned speech to the bankers who were funding it. And they did ultimately release it. But going back to the box office, you know who was really intimidated by Hearst? A lot of these movie theater owners. RKO could afford to put the movie out and deal with Hearst griping at him. The movie theaters couldn't. He made threats like, if your theater runs this movie, you will never have any of your movies or anything listed in any Hearst-owned publication ever. And so it wasn't playing in a lot of theaters. It was kind of only in the cities. That's why it didn't make any money in the rural areas. So he did hurt this movie.
Did he? Or is this the first example ever of the so-called Streisand effect? So named because Barbra Streisand had some house that was photographed by the National Enquirer on private property in gated community or something rather, and she wound up suing them. Had she said nothing, the photograph would have been on page 7 of a newspaper and come and gone. But then she sued them, so every media winds up going, this photograph is what Barbra Streisand is suing for, so everyone starts talking about this thing, and now this thing becomes super famous only because she didn't say nothing. And I wonder, would it maybe have come and gone like any other 1941 film? There's a couple other things the world had on their mind in September 1941.
Right.
That maybe, if Hearst had shut up, and I wonder if we would still be talking about it today if it wasn't that big a deal when it first came out.
If Hearst hadn't gotten so pissy about it, and he had just let the movie be released and written about it in his papers and allowed his reporters to write their honest thoughts about it, I kind of think it would have been a bigger deal in 1941.
But would it be as big a deal in 2026 is the question. I think about this movie they recorded at Disney World, like without permission. They were banking on Disney suing them and winning the lawsuit because that would make so much publicity to it. Disney smartly just ignored it, said, yeah, release it. And I can't think of the name of that film because probably it wasn't a huge David and Goliath lawsuit.
It's an interesting point. Ultimately, who knows? I think one of the things that's really interesting about it, though, is the fact that Hearst was not a great dude. People hated him. He was reviled in his time. But it did seem like he wouldn't have cared if the movie was slighting him. It was about Marion Davies. That was the thing that made it personal. And Orson Welles has said in interviews, decades after the movie came out, that he felt absolutely no guilt whatsoever about going after Hearst. But he did feel a little bit bad about the Marion Davies thing because she was in his orbit. She was with Hearst, but she wasn't the target. And going after Hearst, that's punching up. Going after his mistress, maybe not so much. One last thing about Hearst and Marion Davies. Do you know where the term Rosebud comes from?
No.
Reportedly, that was what Hearst called Marion Davies' clitoris, Rosebud. So if that is in fact true, and that is in fact where they took the inspiration for the most important word in this very important movie, that's pretty shitty.
I found Susan to be kind of a victim in this film. She isn't one of these girlfriends, sons of a famous person that demands to be famous just because of who they are. She doesn't want an opera house built for her.
Right.
She's not supposed to headline an opera, but she never wanted to.
Right.
I like her. I think she's a person you sympathize, and I don't go, oh, what a loser.
I think that's a very good point. And while we're talking about the story and the script and how it all came together, the structure of this movie is fascinating because it starts with the character dying. The first word of the movie is Rosebud, his last word. Then we get this newsreel, which tells us his entire life story, childhood through death. And then we start unpacking his life again, but from all of these different perspectives. It's not chronological. I mean, it kind of sort of is, but there are stories that overlap because we hear the story from the banker, and then we hear it from the manager and the friend and the ex-wife. And so we're getting these same stories, but from different points of view. None of it's firsthand. Some of it's secondhand because Leland, his friend, tells this reporter who's putting together the story of Kane what happened with Kane's first marriage. And that wife has died, so we can't get the story from her. Presumably, Jed Leland wasn't there for all of those intimate moments of the marriage. So he's hearing it secondhand. So we're getting it thirdhand. And it is dense. There's a lot in here. You do have to be paying attention to follow all of the time jumps and wait, did this happen before that? I would call it challenging, but in a good way. Like, you really have to be focused and engaged and paying attention to really just follow this guy's life story because of the way it's structured, which is very nonlinear.
This structure is very common today, but I'd imagine from a film history point of view, this non-linear way of telling the film and flashbacks, it was something that blew people's minds. Something I loved about this Leland character, he said, memory is the biggest curse the human species ever had. That's fascinating because everything you fear and love and all of your emotions are based on memory. And when he's talking about that, he says this story about this woman that he saw on a passing ferry in 1899. And he saw this woman for 1 second and he saw her and she didn't even see him perhaps, but there's not a month that goes by that he doesn't think about that woman. And I think we all have a memory like that, not necessarily of a attractive person we saw, but just something that we think about every single week or month for our entire life.
Definitely. I think those lines that you were quoting, I believe those were attributed to Mank. There was a lot of back and forth about who wrote the script and was it Wells and Mank? Was it mostly Mank? Was it mostly Wells? It was a whole long drawn out thing, mainly just because the movie was supposed to be written, produced, directed, and starring Orson Welles, and having that co-written credit in there was going to throw things off. But apparently Wells really did want Mank to get the credit. Those one lines that really stick with you, apparently that was Mank's specialty. One thing that really hit me in this story was Kane as a little boy. His parents come into money because there's gold in their mine or underneath their mine. And so what they do is they give their kid to the bank. Apparently, that was kind of a thing back then. Certain people, if they were poor and then came into money and they didn't know what to do with the money, they would give custodianship of their child to a banker, an investor, or someone who was supposed to raise them and look after their money. Here it's episode 500. I'll say the catchphrase. As a father, that blows my fucking mind. Like, that is insane to think, man, we've got all this money here. We better give away our kid? That's not a feature in the Chase app today.
Yeah, I don't think you need to be a parent to think that that's odd. Whether or not it's true, it sounds like it was true.
It's funny you say that. To me, I thought it was something that sounded really made up. I don't know if you watched Fargo, the TV show. It was the Chris Rock season. There are these two rival gangs, and the way that they don't go to war with each other is they swap kids. So like one kid from each gang goes to be raised with this other gang. And to me, that's like that's an interesting conceit for a TV show, but no way would that ever fucking happen. It just reeks of a plot device. Whereas apparently that was not the case for Citizen Kane. It was not just a creation of Orson Welles and Mank of, hey, what if? That kind of thing did actually happen. Once Kane is involved in the newspaper, he is doing what would be known as yellow journalism. There's a woman who's missing and he's saying, well, she must be murdered. Go and get a confession from the husband. Tell him you're the cops or whatever. And the former editor at the paper who's still there, who's really just there for comic relief, who's blustery and sweating, is like, well, what? You can't do that. Kane's like, oh, yes, I can. Watch me. He is creating sensational headlines. That's what he cares about. Also, though, he writes these guiding principles that he is always going to look out for the working man and that he is going to deliver truth and honesty in his newspaper, whatever the words are. And those two things are contradictory. You can't be so dedicated to the truth and also doing whatever you can do to sell more papers and to increase your circulation, which is what he cares about. And watching that now in 2026, it's really hard to not think about the people who continue to buy up newspapers and buy up media companies to influence public opinion. That's especially true when Kane starts running for office. He has sway and he has power and he has control over the story with the newspapers. But if he runs for office, then he can really just tell people what to think. I was watching this and I was thinking, okay, so this guy who's desperate for love and runs for office kind of seems like Trump. And Trump has said that this is his favorite movie and he is inspired by Citizen Kane. You know, that comes up even more when the headlines are pre-printed for the day after the election. It's either Kane wins or fraud at polls. It doesn't say Kane loses. And so this was a movie that Trump loved long before politics. This was a thing that was in his life when he was a private citizen. And you watch it now and you're like, huh, that seems kind of pretty fucking familiar.
It's interesting you bring up Trump. I actually saw a little bit of Elon Musk in there.
Oh, a lot of Elon Musk.
Someone who's the equivalent of what we call billionaire back then, and bought media, one of the biggest media places in the world, Twitter, X. Certainly he's gotten involved in world and domestic politics. You know, Elon Musk has had relationships with some of the most beautiful women, and he has, so many children with many women. And I wonder, is he happy? Actually smiling and true friends and not two people hanging out that's transactional.
Yeah.
Charles Kane is a little sympathetic. Wow, you're dying alone. The best memory you have at the end of your life, the last happy moment was when you were 6 years old. None of this stuff made you happy. It's so sad.
I 100% agree with everything you just said. You could also see parallels with Jeff Bezos, who is a billionaire who bought the Washington Post. What's the name of the guy who bought the LA Times, who is a billionaire? Zuckerberg isn't quite the same because he kind of just fell into owning the media company, but he's using the media company for influence. There's a lot of parallels. Trump is there mainly because of the running for office and the election fraud, but Musk, absolutely. And I think you really do get to the question of the movie, which is, are these people happy? What is it that they really want? You can have all the money in the world. You can have all the greatest art in the world. You can have adoration from maybe about half of the general population. We get that from the newsreel about Citizen Kane, that some people loved him, some people reviled him. He was accused of being both a communist and a fascist. He's being attacked from every side. And also, I think one of the reporters says about Kane, he had everything that he ever wanted and then he lost it all. And I do think that's debatable because he got everything that he was after in terms of money and power and, the statues and the beautiful wives. But was that what he really wanted? Because his deathbed word was Rosebud. It goes back to his childhood. Maybe the only thing he ever wanted was his mom to love him. He didn't have that, and that was what he was just longing for when he died, an old man alone in that palace.
Yeah, it also reminded me in ways of Michael Jackson.
Sure.
Not getting into any of his later life things, but as a sympathetic character that it seems that he never quite had a childhood and he just wanted to play on a playground when he was 7 years old instead of being on Live with the Apollo and being beloved by the world.
Yeah. And I swear this will be the last time I say his name, but there is a thing about Trump that the reason he's gone into politics, the reason he's done all of the things he's done is because his dad was a hard ass and his dad was cold and his dad never gave him love and affection. And that's what he's been chasing for all of these years. And it doesn't excuse the behavior. It doesn't excuse Kane's behavior in this movie. It explains it. There's a difference, and you can walk out of this movie thinking that Kane is a piece of shit, that he's a wonderful man, or anything in between, and that's kind of up for you to decide. You see his life story, warts and all. Orson Welles had more affection for the character of Citizen Kane, and Mank hated him because Mank had this falling out with Hearst. They were friends, and then Mank was apparently a very angry and belligerent drunk, and he got drunk one too many times at a Hearst party, and he was booted from the social circle, so Mank really fucking hated Hearst. So there is kind of a push and a pull in the script of, do you hate Kane? Do you love Kane? It's subjective. The one quote that I read that I thought was really interesting was that when Wells was talking about the story, he said, there are lots of movies that are success stories. You see someone who achieves success, rags to riches kind of a thing. And he wanted to tell a failure story. And that's a really interesting way of framing it because he achieved so much, but he also did fail because he died alone, sad in this mansion, surrounded by butlers who had no idea what his last word meant.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The story was really revolutionary for the time. Also, the camera work is mind-blowing for 1941. Also, kind of for today. Some of it is more subtle, where you are watching a scene and every single thing is in focus, the foreground, the midground, and the background, which cannot be done. That is not how cameras work. And they were doing composite shots where they would shoot the background and then layer it on top of the midground and then layer it on top of the foreground. And that had never been done. In a lot of ways, Citizen Kane is a special effects movie. You might not think that, right? Because it's a lot of people talking and stuff like that. But even though this movie did go over budget, it still had a fairly limited budget. And they do a lot with very, very little. That scene where Kane is delivering his campaign speech in that huge hall, there's thousands of people cheering. There's really not. It's like 20 extras, and the crowd shots are still photographs that they poked holes in and they flashed lights underneath. While I was watching it, I didn't notice that. It looked like a big, huge crowd. You're not thinking about these things, but the work was really revolutionary. Orson Welles said the kindest things about his cinematographer, Greg Toland, who wanted to work with Welles because Welles had never worked in movies. So he was like, you're going to push me to do things that I think are impossible, but you don't think are impossible, and we're going to make them possible. This movie really did advance the art of movie making in a really, really profound way.
I agree with that. It kind of reminds me of the stories that you hear about the creation of Star Wars with the young George Lucas. Like, you couldn't do this in 1977, so let's just invent the way to do it.
Right.
The end of the film, when there's this long shot over all of this junk that's eventually going to be thrown into a furnace, I'm like, oh, this is where Spielberg got his long shot at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, yeah.
Of where the Ark of the Covenant is. They got it from this film.
Right. A couple of the shots that really kind of stood out to me were the ones into the nightclub where they start on the roof and then they go through the sign and then into the skylight. Before digital effects, they had to make that sign literally in two pieces so that they could move it so that the camera could go through it. Also, remember, cameras were huge back then. I think the most impressive shot is when he's talking about the journalists at the rival newspaper that he's going to get for his newspaper, and you see their photograph and it's off to the side, and then the camera goes in to the photograph, and then we see those men sitting there posing for a photograph. It's now 9 years later, and Kane has signed them, and then it pulls back, and they're in that ballroom as he's welcoming them to his newspaper. That's really impressive. I feel like that would be an impressive thing to see in a modern movie. And to know that they did that 85 years ago, it is mind-blowing. There's also just kind of some other smaller things where they do shoot very low and they aim up. Apparently, this was like the first movie where anyone saw a ceiling, because you just never would. Why would you see a ceiling? That's where you hang the lights and the microphones and everything. You're watching a movie. You're watching two people talk. What do you care about the ceiling? But for that scene with Kane and Leland after he loses the election, it was really important for Orson Welles to go low. They literally had to dig into the floor. They had to bust up the concrete so that they could get the super low angle that he was looking for. A lot of it just kind of came from his sort of ignorance in not knowing how these things were supposed to work, but really made for a movie that is just visually breathtaking.
I did really like how a lot of this was filmed, and this is one of those films that I think the black and white actually, it's very good for it. I'm sure they colorized it in the 80s or 70s when they started doing that stuff.
Well, Ted Turner wanted to colorize Citizen Kane, and there was a huge backlash against it. And maybe it was because he didn't have the rights, and it may be because Orson Welles and his estate were pissed, and maybe it was just because of the bad press that he didn't do it.
Well, the Xanadu fireplace, was this a 10-foot fireplace, or did he maybe do one of the early examples of forced perspective?
I'm not sure exactly if that was forced perspective or if that fireplace was massive, but they did use a lot of sound design in that scene where the room wasn't that big, but they use echo to make it seem like it's really big. Even when Kane is walking into the room and Susan's there, he says something and she's like, "What?" Using the audio effects. That was something that Orson Welles did know how to do because he came from radio, where audio is everything, obviously. Also in that scene, Susan is super bored, and what's she doing? Jigsaw puzzles. That was an instant COVID flashback for me. I don't know how many puzzles you did in 2020. We did all of them. Every puzzle we had, we did that year.
I was just thinking about what did people do before radio, television, and I mean, there's only so many books you could read. Something maybe you want to interact with today would be your phone, and but I guess she was just so bored that just is all I saw. She really hates her life. She tries to commit suicide. She just wants to be with a stupid jigsaw puzzle.
Well, what does she really want? She asks Kane, "Can I just go back to New York? I want to be with my friends." This is maybe corny, but she needs love. She needs to be around people who love her. And she says that Kane doesn't really love her because he's never given her anything that is meaningful to him or that's meaningful to her. He'll buy her statues from, some palace in Versailles. Cool, neat. It's probably priceless, but it doesn't mean anything. And she's looking for companionship. She's looking for love, and she's not getting it from Kane. We spend more time with Susan. The first wife, Emily, I think is really interesting. We see their marriage kind of unravel in one montage where it's just fights at dinner over the years. He's going off to work and she says, "Oh, can't you just stay home with me?" And then he does. And then over the years, he spends more and more time at work, and then she becomes more resentful. That scene apparently was filmed in reverse, where they put all the older makeup on and then took it off, because that was just easier. I mean, that's a really effective way of showing how this marriage unravels over, I forget how many years they say it is, a decade or two, and it happens in 2 minutes of screen time. That's really, really effective. You get it. You understand exactly what happened to these two. This is one little gripe I have with the movie. In the newsreel, we find out that after she leaves him because he's sleeping with Susan, at some point in the future, Emily and her son die in an accident. And that's never brought up again. I'll say it again. As a father, just the thought of that, of losing a child, that had to affect Kane. The whole point of the movie is this one reporter figuring out who Kane is. Obviously, he can't talk to the first wife. She died too. But I really feel like that would be a question he would ask. What happened to this guy after his child died, his only son? And it's just dropped. I felt like that was a piece of the puzzle. Going back to the jigsaw puzzle thing, it's also a metaphor for Kane and his life. That was a pretty big piece of the puzzle that I wish they had focused on, spent a little bit of time on.
Yeah, I agree. It's an interesting point.
The way I was rationalizing it in my head was back then, maybe just dads didn't care about their kids, and that was like the mom had to do the parenting. But counterpoint to that is that scene where Kane is a little boy when he's playing in the snow and his mom's signing him off, and the dad is the one who's saying, now wait just a second here, that's my kid, you can't sign him away. So that dad did care, although that dad was also abusing the kid, which is why the mom was sending him away.
Yeah, I don't think the dad wanted to keep him because he loves him. I think he wanted his little whipping boy that he can keep around. And the mom
Fair.
did this, like, I'm sending him someplace you'll never be able to touch him again. So the mom did one of those Sophie's Choice things of like, will I never see my son again and he'll be happy? Or will I keep him here? I get to see my son, but he's probably going to be abused, maybe hurt permanently by this husband of mine.
I think that also does bring up another interesting question, which is what happened to the mom? Why does she never see him again? Maybe he has to go off with this banker and live with him and be raised by him. Can't she visit? Can't she write letters? Can't she be in his life in some way?
Yeah, I guess it's kind of Star Wars Episode 1 and 2. Anakin, you've been a Jedi for 10 years. Why haven't you rescued your slave mom? Because plot reasons. That's why, Al.
I get that. While I'm nitpicking plot, there is a moment when he first meets Susan where he says that he was going to find his mom's old things, that they were in storage. I do think maybe it could have come up once, maybe twice more in the movie, that he was longing for his childhood, that he was longing for a connection with his mom. One line of dialogue here or there so that it would kind of hit a little bit harder at the end when you realize what Rosebud is. It still hits hard, don't get me wrong, but I feel like they could have maybe just put a little bit more in there about that.
I was wrong when I said earlier the only thing I knew about this film was Orson Welles, because I did know that Rosebud was the sled.
Okay.
So, yeah, you're right. Maybe a couple hints would have been better.
I think so. But let me ask you, James, do you think that Citizen Kane stands the test of time?
I enjoyed it. I did. Do I understand why it's the quote-unquote greatest film of all time? No and yes. There's a lot of modern themes that are surprisingly still relevant. You can admire that it's brilliant art. I do see what all the fuss is about. Enough that I'm even able to say, I'm not knowledgeable about film and film history to admire for what it really is, but I get why people love it. And I did really like this film, so it stands the test of time. What do you think, Al? Does Citizen Kane stand the test of time?
I think this is a no-brainer. Yes, it does. I appreciate this movie on all of the levels for all of the things and all of the reasons that we discussed. I also did find it really entertaining. I was hooked. Yeah, I knew Rosebud was a sled. That's just a thing that everyone knows because of pop culture and it's in the zeitgeist. But getting there is really, really interesting. I am a sucker for a good character study. It's kind of funny that we just did Taxi Driver last week. That was a character study in the first person. This is a character study from multiple different perspectives that are kind of overlapping and contradictory. So that's just interesting to me in general. I really wanted to know about this guy and why he did what he did and how it affected people and how it affected him. There are really great lines when he says, if I hadn't been rich, I might have been a great man. Wow, that's powerful. The themes of this man who has all of this money and has all of this power. And what does Kane want? He wants real power. He wants real influence. He says the people will think what I tell them to think. He runs for office with basically only one campaign promise, which is to indict the former guy. Also, then he loses and he declares fraud. In that newsreel, there's things about how before he got into politics, he was swinging elections with his influence. He could tell people, don't vote for this person, vote for this person. There were all these public figures that he supported and some that he denounced and some that he supported and then denounced. And there's, a shot of him with Hitler. And it's like, interesting. I feel like all of that stuff is really, really relevant and timely today in 2026. And I don't think it's true about every billionaire. I think Bill Gates is the example of a good billionaire who just wants to cure disease in Africa. But there's a lot of other people who want to use their money to get more money, more power, and control people. It feels relevant and timely for some of the wrong reasons, but also maybe it's not wrong. Maybe that's just human nature. What's that phrase? Absolute power corrupts absolutely. That's what's going to happen to anyone. I found this movie really, really entertaining. Reading all of the background stuff about it, I find it even more interesting. Yeah, of course, Citizen Kane stands the test of time. If you want to debate, is this the number one movie of all time? I think that's a fair conversation to have. My guess is that at a certain point, there's probably some confirmation bias in there where it ended up as number one on some list and then someone else put it as number one and then everyone kind of put it as number one because everyone else was putting it as number one. That said, though, there's not necessarily a clear consensus on what's the number one novel of all time or painting of all time. I don't know, maybe Mona Lisa, maybe David for sculpture, but album, poem, book, I don't know that there's just general consensus over what is the very best, like there is with Citizen Kane as the best movie.
It's the equivalent of, is Chuck Berry the greatest musical artist of all time? I'm not sure if he's the greatest, but I think he's often attributed to, without him, there wouldn't be rock and roll.
Right.
So without this film, do you get Pulp Fiction, which is one of these completely out of sequence films? Perhaps not. So it's certainly up there as one of the most influential films of all time.
Yes. Also, for what it's worth, when AFI put Citizen Kane as number one on their list, that probably boosts Citizen Kane streams and downloads and purchases. It also is great for AFI, right? Because then everyone's talking about the AFI list and they're getting their name out there too.
I remember when that came out, I just never realized that it was in the Mount Rushmore of films until AFI put it at number one.
Fair. Also, the whole thing is just so goddamn subjective. I think that every year at the Oscars, how can you pit these movies against each other and declare one is the best one of the year? So to do that for all time is kind of an exercise in futility / you're just doing it to get press and get coverage and have people talk about it, which isn't a bad thing, because if that does get more people to see movies like Citizen Kane, I'd consider that a good thing. But James, here we are at the end of our 500th episode. A lot of people want us to do 500 more, which means we got to come back next week for episode 501. What do you think?
Let's start from 501 and keep going to 1,000.
Okay, all right.
Then are they going to ask for 2,000 or 10,000?
I don't know. I don't know what these people want. You're insatiable. But next week, we will be back for episode 501 in honor of the upcoming Super Bowl. We're going to watch Friday Night Lights, the movie, not the book that inspired the movie, not the TV show that was inspired by the movie, but the 2004 movie starring Billy Bob Thornton. As always, we love hearing from you. You don't have to send us a voice note, though you still can if you want to. We are at Test of Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. Let us know what you think about Citizen Kane, about super rich people influencing elections, about rosebuds, about sleds, about William Hurst, about castles, about opera, about whatever. We just love hearing from you. Thank you to everyone who sent in a message for our 500th episode. They all meant so much to us. Really, really appreciate that you did that. And we'll see you next time, everyone.
Yes, we're going to say goodbye, but I did lie to you earlier when I said that was our last song.
There's another one?
We have one more that we're going to go out on. They call themselves Orlando Praise. 500 episodes. It's been a pleasure, everyone. We'll see you next week.
It's the test of time. James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says gladiator with a glare, and Alan says as a father, blah blah. It's the test of time. James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time. James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? There's a sax solo. Test of time. James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time. James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
That is a certified banger.